maybe back in the early 2000s, the bar was such that I think maybe a bachelor's graduate didn't quite get into graphics programming. You really needed to do a master's in it or a PhD in it. But then WebGL kind of lowered the bar a little bit. It made it more accessible. I wouldn't say it lowered the bar, but it made it accessible. And now you could actually do all that, OpenGL style programming in a web page, and it was intoxicating. It was like, now I can take this sort of quiet nighttime side hobby of graphics programming and actually, make it my focus as a developer. So I sort of quit my day job as a Java developer pretty much as soon as WebGL.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We're free, right? That's right there. It's like just growing up reading lots of cyberpunk science fiction, listening to electronic EDM music and coding late at night, and WebGL was just like it was a bit of a gift.
Opening a new world.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So lots of people started learning graphics programming at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I also had once a look at it, but I think you need some time to get actually into it. Did you also write your own shaders and stuff like this?
Yeah, but it was hard getting started with it, because it's the first time I'd ever written a shader. Yeah, and you can't debug shaders. You can't set a breakpoint in them. So it was super hard going to start with. Yeah. And
okay, I think shall we just then start?
We already started.
We're already full in the discussion here.
Already set the recording. I started the recording. We will share it afterwards on the YouTube channel and usually get some views there as well for everyone who can't join today. So let's get started, Felix. The stage is yours.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. First of all, thank you, Diyan and Lindsay, for joining today. You are from Xeokit, like an open source SDK for BIM viewers for the web, if I understand correctly. And today we have a little conversation about open source, about the project Xeokit itself. And I think to get started, maybe one of you already starts to introduce yourself, and then we explore what Xeokit is and what the future holds for Xeokit as well.
So thank you, Felix, for having us here and organizing these great calls. Maybe just a quick intro from my side, and then I'll pass over to Lindsay to make also the introduction of Xeokit. So hi, I'm Diyan, and I'm by education a civil engineer, structural engineer. I used to develop software for a few years, so trying to combine both worlds. And with Xeokit, I'm more on the operational side, so looking after all the Xeokit integrators that run Xeokit productively on a daily basis, just that everything runs as smoothly as possible. And you can say at Creox, boy for everything. So whatever is needed, we are not a huge company. So looking forward to our exchange today, and hanging over to Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm a software engineer at Creox. My background is programming. I originally come from New Zealand, lived in Berlin since 2010, and my background is graphics programming for the browser.
Yeah, we already started full-on discussion about web shaders and WebGL. But I think to maybe take a step back first, maybe what did this project initialize? Why did you thought about I need to make SDK for BIM specifically, or how did that come? Because I think also you did a couple of open source render projects before as well. So how did you end up going to build something like Xeokit?
Right. Well, it started with just wanting to make a graphics engine. This desire to just make something that creates 3D worlds. It's a sort of fun project, and I sort of started making it in JavaScript before WebGL arrived, and it was rendering with HTML developments, wireframes, and so it was just an obsession. And then when WebGL came along, I just converted that to WebGL, and now we can do thorough shading in the browser, and so I just made a bunch of engines, just trying to get towards this ideal of what I had, performance, memory, footprint, all those good things. Just trying to get more performance, just as a kind of fun thing, really. And then so I made some open source libraries, and each one was sort of like learning off lessons of the previous one. And then at one point, I worked for Biodigital in the States, which wanted to move their C++ anatomy visualization app onto the web, and so they wanted to convert that from OpenGL to WebGL. So that was my first job working with WebGL, and so we built that on Scene.js. But yeah, more lessons learned, and then I made another library called Xeokit, and I tried to use Scene.js for more than just medical visualization, but for visualizing buildings. And then what happens is we bump into a huge number of objects instead of just all the bones in the body. We've now got 200,000 objects at least in a building, and so it just didn't scale up. So I started again with another library trying to get performance for assemblies of parts, CAD models and things, just things made up of lots of moving parts. And then that had only so much performance, and new tricks were needed. So I started again with Xeokit. And as I was freelancing, I was getting jobs making IFC viewers, BIM viewers on these toolkits, but they weren't, like I said, they weren't sort of scaling up, so they needed to be redesigned, especially for hundreds of thousands of objects. So short answer, design of Xeokit is driven by those specific needs in visualizing BIM models, like large numbers of objects, hierarchies of them, being able to select, hide, show bunches of objects. The requirements are fairly defined, and they shape Xeokit, basically needing to load lots of objects and draw them quickly. And
so, Felix, if I may ask one quick question in between, just a follow-up question. So you came up with your own graphic engines, right? Or you don't build up on Three.js or any of the other popular libraries out there?
No, because we need to design them from the ground up with that low memory footprint for the large numbers of objects.
Okay.
So we needed a more memory efficient scene representation.
Okay. And just in that regard, did you obviously follow what that open company guys, what they're doing, Antonio and his friends?
Yes,
with fragments.
Yep. From time to time, although it is difficult to follow other software development projects.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. But they've been taking on the same challenge in a way, and just started a couple of years later and probably found other ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like one thing we try to do is minimize the number of draw calls that are done to draw geometries. We try to batch geometries, and we do that quite aggressively in Xeokit. And we have a couple of batching strategies. We just need to do that stuff ourselves in order to get the performance level we need.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And
maybe sorry, Felix. Yeah. Maybe short comment from what I heard also from other developers on our team, that there was a lot of noise around the fragments format. I think it's now 2.0 version or something like that. And Xeokit has its own XKT format, which is, I think, version 12 already, which also achieves a compression rate of around 95% of an IFC model. So I mean, using different buffer techniques, but in fundamentally doing more or less the same stuff, maintaining the precision and compressing, deduplicating, all these techniques. So
That,
indeed.
I'm sorry. You mentioned precision. That's another thing. We need to be able to take models in their real world coordinates and visualize them in their real world coordinates in the browser without centering them and without getting rounding jitter. So the problem with GPUs is a typical GPU has around, I think, something like 7 or 9 digits of accuracy. And so that means when you've got like models that contain real world coordinates, like railways or something, then you've got really large coordinate values, and they round when you get rounding jitter unless you center the models, and that's a built-in limitation of stock WebGL libraries, where to get precision with large coordinates, you need to emulate that precision in the shader, and that's what we do in Xeokit. And also Cesium does this. We do the same technique that Cesium does, using relative descendant coordinates. So that's another thing that we need to make the engine ourselves in order to solve that problem.
Okay, so you with Xeokit, you go like really low level to have this like decimal optimizations and possibilities for have like long decimal numbers for actually being able to display this real world data.
That's correct, yeah.
All right. And like, I just thought like IFC or BIM models in general are sometimes quite big. So like when you work in the web, I encountered that like at the moment with the project. So with the data uploads and download rates. So like here in Switzerland, I think the internet is mostly fast. But if you have like really slow internet connections, is that a big hurdle for being able to use these tools, or is it just like not the main concern?
Ooh, what do you think, Diyan? It's...
Yeah. It's a bit of a loop here. So you can, of course, load a model directly. I mean, we also have these loader plugins, so you don't need to send the model for conversion to a server and get it back. But yeah, you have some trade-offs always, apparently, because if you convert the model, for example, from IFC to XKT, you have it small, and you convert it once, but then you still need to convert it. So yeah, if you load it each time, then each time it needs to be converted. So there are for sure some pros and cons of this strategy, but yeah, we keep an eye on that. It's use case dependent. So some people, they say it's very important for us that we have everything on the back end already prepared for the user. So whenever they want to see something, it's already there and they can access it. For example, there's these platforms for the construction management. They make these models available offline. So they just pre-download it on the device before they go to the construction site and stuff like that. So there are different strategies around that, and it really depends.
Yeah, right. Like a lot of users want to be able to use a viewer on site with dodgy internet on the tablet. Yeah. So we have a couple of users that are also like running a complete web application on their tablet offline. Say something like a Chrome embedded framework or something like that, where the application can actually access the file system on their device, or Electron or something like that. Yeah.
So and your end users in this way are like just companies that use your open source kit and build their own thing, or are they coming to you, for example, to Creox now, and they just ask you implement a whole application for them based on that open source.
Mm-hmm.
How does that in the end you also have a product in this way? I feel like so how does this balance or this in between work from this SDK to also like having a product itself?
Yeah, well, actually, the SDK is the product in our case. So let's say our main we call them partners or customers, but we are really partnering with them because it's very valuable, this feedback that comes back to us. So that's really important to us. And yeah, they just take the SDK and they integrate it in their software. But it's a software company at the end of the day. However, of course, we see also some trends, especially nowadays with AI. Everyone can develop a software, so everyone has become a developer to some degree, and we see more and more also freelancers and engineers and architects and also engineering offices that don't necessarily have software developers in-house, but people that are more IT affine maybe and want to take up on in-house project, and they are also using the SDK for their internal projects. So yeah, I guess the variety is getting wider here.
Nice.
We rarely have custom development projects because people can get around using Xeokit on their own relatively easily. We maintain a service desk to support our commercial customers. From time to time, we have maybe some on-demand developments of some specific features or something that is not on the roadmap. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an optional thing. So it's not the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you don't need to hire like a whole team of people to be able to use this Xeokit.
No. Yes, Max.
Max?
Yeah.
Just so you said you have a service desk for the open source community as well. Like everyone using the open source tool can come and ask, or like what's the relationship to the open source community?
Yeah, well, here we differentiate a bit. Maybe we don't communicate. I mean, on the communication part, we still need to improve for sure. But let's say we keep the open community open on GitHub issues so that it's really open to everyone. And we have the service desk for our commercial partners where they can exchange with us also confidential models and so on, where we work more closely together.
Because you have mainly HGPL, right?
Yes.
So if I'm building a commercial startup and want to use the Xeokit SDK, I would need to purchase a license.
So with AGPL, I really liked, there was this picture also from Lindsay in one of his slides, that it's free like freedom. So with AGPL, you can build your commercial application as long as you also adopt the AGPL license for your application.
Like the entire code would need to be open source.
Yeah, which some people do. I mean, I think actually, guys, I saw this on one of your previous episodes with the IFC LCA from. He's also adopting AGPL.
Yeah, absolutely.
And integrating Xeokit. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just reading in the messages. Amar is asking, does Xeokit consider WASM for any future deployment for offline processing or gaining performance, for example?
How does WASM actually integrate with GL? Is that possible?
We don't use WASM within the core of Xeokit. but we do have some libraries that we integrate with Xeokit for loading models that use WASM. So we use loaders.gl to load some model formats. I think they use a WASM there somewhere. I've forgotten. We load point clouds. Yeah, we use WASM for non-core, some non-core things for parsing. Yeah, but not outside of that. I mean, I think there's always room where we could use more WASM. Yeah, we'll use it as we need it.
At this point, also important to say that we also integrate with WebIFC from that open company, and they did really good job there. So we are also contributing with our guys. So basically, behind the scenes, we are collaborating, even if we don't announce it so publicly. But we are definitely there, and it is called WebIFC Loader plugin, so it is quite obvious. And we have now also a second one, also for IFC. What was the name? The JX converter WASM loader plugin or something like that.
IFC OpenShell loader plugin. So,
yeah, and this is now in the making, the third one. Yeah.
Mika?
Yes, this is actually a fascinating subject always with open source, is that we have, of course, this viewers evolving in parallel, and you just mentioned that you are collaborating, but this is a little bit, how do we avoid repeating always the history of interoperability repeating all the time, no? So you said that you are collaborating, but do you have any more comments about how this collaboration works? Or I'm curious about
collaboration with
strategy of collaboration with in the case of Fragments or the other company.
I think it would be on Fabian's side with us. With that company, because Fabian is using WebIFC for converting IFC as one of the options for converting IFC to XKT. Yeah, and
maybe, I mean, from what I observe, because we get all these requests and reports about some bugs, and sometimes, it's the data set of models that is really decisive, because there are all kinds of broken IFCs and special edge cases and so on and so on. And then the more we gather from the applications and the integrators already using Xeokit, I mean, even the big guys like, I don't know, Think Project, Bexel, Fieldwire, and so on, they bring to us all these cases, and we have to react. And whenever we see, oh, okay, this is actually coming from the Boolean operations at some point, this is coming from something else, and then we see, okay, is this something that's on our side we can fix, or maybe is something which is, this is actually for, because we've switched part of the parsing, exactly the parsing part of the IFC. We're using their WebIFC since the beginning of this year, I think. And then we see, okay, so maybe there's something there, and then our guys just do pull request with our fixes. Then there is, pure GitHub collaboration, and it works so far. So I have no complaints on that. Yeah.
And sorry.
Can I quickly jump in? Like, another thing that I think is interesting now is, since you've been in the BIM game for quite some time, Lindsay for sure, Diyan, I think you also, like, and I've started to implement BIM into a large contractor in Switzerland like almost 10 years ago. And what I find is that many of the problems that project teams are dealing with haven't changed really in the last 10 years. But if you think, so it's not really a technology problem, it's more of an adoption problem, or also of a way how we see BIM. And what I, at least from my perspective, observe in the market is that people come to the understanding that it makes sense to separate the geometry and the information management a little bit. Just like say, there's so much information on one object, for example, a door, and that will never ever live within an IFC file, for example, probably for documentation purposes, but for the management, it should not happen in the CAD environment. Is this something that is influences your work at all, or is it really just something that happens out there and Xeokit doesn't position itself specifically to the topic of geometry and information management? Do you understand the question?
I think I do. Lindsay, would you like to start, or should I?
No, I'm not sure I'd understand the question, actually.
It's just like some years ago, everything was about like, okay, everyone works on the same model, and we try to put as much information to the objects within a BIM model, and then we exchange everything, the geometry and all the data within an IFC format, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have some that say, okay, we do IFC native modeling, but they like Blender or Bonsai BIM, and just it's very niche, I think, since most of the people still are on the big vendors like ArchiCAD and Revit and so on. But now people learn that exchanging models with all the comprehensive information attached to the objects just does not really work. Like whenever or like most of the clients that order BIM models from their customers, they receive models that don't fit their requirements properly. So I mean, that's just an evolution of how people deal with BIM models in general. And one main topic, I guess, is that you really start to separate the information management. Means you have data in databases and separate applications, and you have the geometry, and you try to kind of limit it, but make it more strict. So in terms of enabling quality checks and stuff, that's what I was wondering, whether this is on your agenda somehow, and if so, how you deal with the topic of information management in BIM from your perspective.
We do validation of IFC models with Xeovision, and it just makes me think of one thing we do with Xeovision, where when we convert an IFC model, we convert it into, within our process, we convert it to geometry and metadata files, two separate data sets, which you load alongside each other. But we often find that there are a large numbers of properties attached to objects, and they tend to really blow out the size of the IFC files and the metadata that we extract. So it just makes me think of how in Xeovision, what we do, we convert an IFC model, we extract the element containment hierarchy into one JSON file, the geometry into an XKT file, and then we just load all the property sets into a relational database. And so then the viewer loads the element hierarchy, the geometry, and then as the user wants to query properties on objects, then it makes a query of the database for that property set. So that's one thing we do.
Okay.
So by the way, Xeovision is just an end-user application built with Xeokit. Just short intro here. But we exactly deal on this very low level where we just split the two. We split the geometry from the metadata, and you get link between them on the objects IDs, and then you can do whatever you like with that data.
But you're not like just in Felix. Sorry, I have a follow-up question. And just like, for example, spectral intelligence which is becoming more and more popular since you can do exactly this, or it's basically focusing on this aspect of things. To kind of, you can also load data from different data sources and then connect them to your model in a way without having it nested into an IFC file. But this is not, or is this something that you feel like a need from your customers, or what you see potentially also as a feature within the Xeokit framework that you offer special features to do data management and visualization properly?
So what we see is that because exactly we deal with that on a very low level, we just deliver all the metadata and the connection between this metadata and the geometry model is made through, for example, a JSON file.
Mm-hmm.
And you can convert this JSON file into a relational database or something else. But basically, once you have the JSON, you can then feed it into some of the Xeokit integrators feed it directly into Power BI or some other tools, and then they build their dashboards the way they like. So it's, let's say, a bit higher level end user feature, which can be built on top. But it's not exactly our focus to deliver it out of the box.
Okay.
Yeah. At least for now. I mean, there are some considerations about that, like grouping, filtering, and so on, to maybe at least provide some examples. Although there are so many ways how you can do that.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, since you mentioned the rise of AI-driven developers, and probably these kind of people have a bit of a different background and different requirements and needs, since they're not like pure software engineers that have their application and just want to use the graphic engine in a way of Xeokit. They just want to say, hey, I have this web application and I want to visualize a 3D model, and I want to have access to the information that's within or contained within that model. So are the requests changing? Like, probably would be interesting to dive a bit into this, like from the community.
I think one thing that that has been requested is a more expressive data model representation in Xeokit. Like, we currently just represent the aggregation hierarchy of elements and then use that to build tree structures or something. And we have had a couple of users ask for a more of a entity relationship model loaded from the metadata so that they can query relationships between objects. And indeed, that we're working on that in Xeokit version 3, but for now 2 is a tree structure.
I think like also one topic that always comes up, I rarely work with BIM or IFC, so like could be that this is solved, but like this whole data quality, like a bit this shit in, shit out problem. How do you experience that, like with working with clients, for example, or just developing like this SDK on handling like thousands of edge cases where like maybe the data in the beginning should be maybe thought more about instead of like just trying to shove everything in and hope for the best. What's your experience with the whole thing?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is excessive detail in geometry. Like one thing that one pain point we had sometimes is procedurally, procedural geometry in IFC, like rotations, extrusions, and things that create way too many triangles. Cylinders that have like 100 little faces on them instead of just 10. So there is that kind of blowout in geometry detail we encounter from time to time. We have to detect that. Another thing we get is IFC elements, invalid IFC element structures, like sometimes buildings missing a building story or an IFC site or something like that. We catch the invalid IFCs with a filter, with XeoVision, with a validator. But we still get tripped up with the overly detailed geometry from time to time. There's not much we can really do about that.
And is that like a software issue, or is it like a issue of knowledge for the end user of not being aware of, like, if I create that much data, it will haunt me later on? So is that more
it is. Yeah. If you're like authoring an IFC model in Revit or something like that, and you decide to, and you maybe you have a staircase with balustrades on it, and you make or windows, and you make every single balustrade its own independent geometry instead of reusing that element of geometry. That happens from time to time. And when authoring a model, it's also nice if the authors are just really conservative about how many triangles they put into each object.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're using a desktop computer with a lot of power, you get really brave and you go, wow, this is powerful. Create a really big detailed model that's very interactive until you load it into a browser.
Yeah, I just hear it all the time from, for example, game developers and stuff like this. So where they optimize every vertex of every mesh and stuff like this.
Yes.
I think like for end users in the construction industry, they shouldn't worry about it, but maybe like that the software itself gets more intelligent about this stuff, or like how do you see like where should we start solving this issue?
I think it starts with whoever's authoring the model perhaps being aware of best practices. Yeah.
But for sure, there are also on the technical side, there are things to be improved. I mean, I can remember a recent case where you just see a slab with an opening, nothing special. And then it turns out that when it was exported, it generated 230 Boolean operations for this one opening.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe to come a bit back to this whole open source aspect of the SDK, like what made you in the first place thinking about open sourcing it instead of like a proprietary like SDK, for example, or just like a closed source thing? So what was the thinking process about it, and how did Xeokit maybe come in this whole system?
Well, with open source, I think it comes back to those first principles. Trust. Can you rely on the software? And closed source is a black box, and it's a gamble. You don't even know if the creators of that black box are going to update it and fix the bugs that you need fixed. So there's a total loss of power with closed source. I mean, I never even considered it. I've used Linux for a long time. It's just a no-brainer. It's just, if I'm going to integrate a component into a project I'm working on, I want control over that component, full stop. Otherwise it's just a complete gamble. So that's where it's coming from: trust and control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how much are like now the users of the SDK actually solving problems? Like, for example, like this black box, now they have the possibility to fix problems in your SDK, for example, or bugs. So how often does that happen, that like the users actually contribute back and fix problems for you guys as well? I think that's like the two-way street here.
Yeah, and of course that's probably even the bigger reason. Just this bigger reason. Yeah, and yes, we do get fixes from time to time from the community, and also a number of features contributed by users as well. Like we have users who will, commercial users who will fork Xeokit, implement some new feature, and not necessarily make a PR, but just give us the modified version as a prototype of how we can then implement that in core Xeokit. So yeah, we've had a few users do that, send us back modified prototypes, and we've integrated the features that they have prototyped. So yep, it's definitely a two-way street, and from time to time lots of smaller fixes for things. Yep, definitely.
And does it take a lot of time to review all like this pull request stuff, or like is it for you more like a burden to go through that, or is it like something that's like do you get like good quality? For example, like I hear it more and more that's like with AI, for example, there's more stuff, just like stuff going around with coding since it's so fast. So like maintainers get sometimes overwhelmed with pull requests that are not actually adding to the project itself.
I don't think we're overwhelmed with pull requests. probably the biggest challenge is that we then, when a fix comes in, we need to test it with a lot of models. Sometimes depends on the fix. It's like Diyan mentioned, there's idiosyncrasies in BIM models, and so the biggest challenge for us is just testing a fix. So we have an automated test suite, a visual test suite, which we can run. I have a test suite for the converter. So yeah, that's probably testing. It's probably the hardest part. And sometimes the prototypes are like totally new territory for us as well. So it takes time to understand some of the prototypes and integrate them. Yeah.
What are people prototyping then? Can you make some examples?
Sure. Data textures. We use data textures to store the geometry on the GPU. And yeah, one of our users experimented with data textures on a branch of Xeokit and then provided a prototype, and then we coded that based on the prototype. So data textures, also snapping the pointer to vertices and edges when making measurements. That was also contributed by one of our users. Diyan, maybe do we talk about that? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You already started.
We can ask other questions.
No, I talk on the programming side of things. Yep, so Trivia, one of our users, contributed the techniques for snapping to vertex. That is Tony Marty, who experimented and developed the technique. And so we got a prototype for that, working prototype. And then what I did is I took that code and adapted it to Xeokit. Yeah.
How much do you use your AI yourself, actually? Do you use...
Yeah, I use AI to do donkey work. Like if let's say, for example, I just converted a code base from using exceptions to using return monads instead of exceptions. That was a huge amount of donkey work, lots and lots of methods that needed to be converted. So what I use GitHub Copilot, and what it does is I'll convert the first method, and it basically learns from what I did, and then I go to the next method, hit tab, and it offers the auto completion of what I did with the method before. So it's like I'm training this AI as I work to do donkey work for me. Yeah, and also finding bugs. It's really good for finding bugs in shaders. Like you can just give it a shader and say, where is the out by one error or whatever. And, yeah, it speeds me up hugely actually. Yeah, but it doesn't make the decisions for architecture or things like that. Yeah.
Maybe one short comment here. We also launched the MCP server. For just exactly. I think it uses Context 7 as a tool for that. So you just install it to whichever assistant you use, and then you can get qualitatively better answers based on the real documentation.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
But it's an MCP server for your docs, or like for what? Okay. But have you seen someone using an MCP server to control like the viewer, like to connect?
Well, we did a prototype also last year at the AC Hackathon. Yeah, but actually not in Zurich. It was in autumn in Wrocław, in Poland, and the one that we organized. Maybe we do it again next year. We see. But it didn't use MCP server. It used another technique, and you can chat with the model. You can get some properties. You can isolate, for example, all the doors only, or some other elements by type, stuff like that. So yeah, we did a short update now with ChatGPT 5 to see if the model has improved the quality, and it did. Definitely. So this was good to see how, without doing anything significantly on our side, the prototype improved just by having a better LLM at the back. But of course, it's still I don't know. The interest also from the market is limited. I've seen lots of these prototypes. I haven't seen a lot of adoption. I don't know. It's probably also another.
It only gets you so far if you can say, "Show me all the doors." It's very generic. That's the question of like, how is your data actually organized, and then you need to kind of bridge not only the web or like the graphic engines, but also the query methods in the back, which might not always be the same, right?
If you also think that the answer might be wrong and you will need to check the answer, then probably the added value from this is relatively low. Yeah.
Do you see like it's just one thing again coming from a user perspective, because one big topic obviously is quantity takeoffs, where you have like quantities in the proper quantity p set basically from IFC, but which is not often correct. I guess Xeokit does offer you do your own calculations, right, of volumes and length and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. In the viewer, we can calculate the volumes and surface areas of solids interactively. Yeah.
Because one big thing that people see here in Switzerland would be interesting to mirror it with your experience is that now everyone says, okay, we have 3D objects, let's take off the quantities, but the quantities from the BIM models don't match the requirements from standardized quantity takeoffs from, like, let's say you have cost planning, and for cost planning there's some rules of how to take off your measures, and they just don't match with what you get from a BIM model, which is like a systematic problem. Have you heard from this from users and ways to deal with it? Like, say, for example, you have a wall and the wall has multiple layers, and basically for some measures you would need the quantities from the outer layer and for others from the central layer, and then that kind of makes it very difficult to first model the model accordingly, but then secondly also take off the measures.
So the SDK offers all these features that you can take the measures, and then typically it's up to the hosting application that would provide this logic then to the user to make some further decisions. So I would say here we're also a bit lower level. Yeah. Or does this answer the question?
Yeah, I guess it's not within your reach. Like, you offer everything that you get from the model, but the way it's modeled and the way it's the quantities are further processed is not within the reach of the Xeokit.
Okay. We offer the tools to inspect the models, to get the information out of it, but then how would you like to present it to the user, and what would be the user's decision? Then it is typically, companies integrate Xeokit in common data environments, and they have their own workflows and ways how to present, and yeah.
What are the next major milestones on your roadmap? Probably, if it comes slowly to an end, an outlook. Is there something interesting to talk about?
Yeah, where should we start?
Yeah, you want to take the lead on that one?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so Lindsay just on the site dropped a small topic, but he's working on a new generation of Xeokit, which would be natively written in TypeScript with improved architecture and everything. So you can always do better. There are also here some lessons learned. So this is an ongoing topic, and of course, without a deadline or anything like that. We don't want to overpromise, but we are on it. So I don't know, Lindsay, if you would like to share some more here.
Yeah, we want to stay on the cutting edge of what's possible, that's for sure. And like with every product, every toolkit, you always have lessons learned, things that you wish you'd done differently, or lessons in retrospect. So that just keeps going. We just keep doing the R&D, staying on the edge, trying to get the most performance as we can out of the browser. And so we've got version 3, Xeokit version 3 in the works. It's not backwardly compatible. It's totally different API.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's got things like
improved performance is the main driver behind it.
yeah. So improved performance. One of the things it does is it's able to load and unload models with less memory thrash and stress on the system. So it's a little bit more sort of, you might say, progressive loading or streaming friendly scene representation. Uses data textures for everything. It's got a entity relationship model, and it just applies solid principles really rigorously, like lots of separation of concerns. Everything's sort of factored out into its own little library, and all the internal functions are factored out into public libraries. So it's just maximizing reuse, maximizing solid sort of thing.
It's also like I had a look in the SDK. It was before it was JavaScript mostly with JS docs, I guess. And now you're switching fully to TypeScript, or
yeah.
Okay, it's cool.
And can I say that progress writing in TypeScript is just wonderful compared to JavaScript. You know when you're violating contracts in your API. It's great.
Makes everything faster. Also for the end user, I guess it's nice.
Yeah.
There is some way to go there.
Yeah. Maybe one thing that we didn't touch, and maybe for also closing, like how do you maintain a project like this? I guess Xeokit has like a influence on that, or like how do you sustain this project that you can work on new versions and not I don't know, like I guess it's not your hobby that you like do as a side. So how does that work?
Yeah, Lindsay. Yeah, please.
Oh, how do we sustain it? By dual licensing. Yeah. So
maybe it's not entirely obvious from the backgrounds and so on, but we are one team. So Lindsay is part of Xeokit. We are 12 people. So only 3 of these 12 people are not developers. So we have more capacity to really, if needed, switch focus on this or that topic. Also to free up more space for Lindsay to develop further exactly these TypeScript new generation and stuff like that.
I kind of feel like the other developers are really missing in this meeting. It is totally a group effort. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe as a closing, like what would you wish from the open source community in general, maybe like also specific to construction? Like what would need to happen? What are you missing from open source in construction at the moment still, or like, yeah. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I can't think of anything at the moment. I'm kind of buried in the code. Diyan, what do you think?
I'm quite happy. Maybe from time to time we are trying to validate some topics and to get some more feedback on that would be nice. For example, recently we had this augmented reality prototype or streaming of very large point clouds with a pottery format. These are things that, as we mentioned also with the AI prototype, chatting with the model, to see if this is something that people would jump on to be developed further or not, yeah, this would be quite interesting. And maybe, before I forget, exactly, one of the exciting things that is coming, it's really hot phase in the making. Today I received the first test version of a Revit converter. So basically directly converting from Revit to Xeokit, which would open also some doors.
That's super cool, super interesting. Yeah, so
Yeah, sorry, one quick question. Do you have any platforms where you come together with your community? Like if you introduce new features or show prototypes and want to hear something about it, have you institutionalized this in a way?
Thank you for the question. I wasn't sure if I should make some advertisement here, but yeah, we saw that we need to improve here as well from our side on the communication. And one of the things that we've started is the series of Xeo meetups. So yeah, please feel welcomed. We'd love to have you there also. The second edition is next Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more or less a similar format where we also showcase just our current work in progress live. So there's a live Q&A session. Yeah,
and possibly a guest presentation from somebody who's used Xeokit for some project. Yeah. We'd like to actually get perhaps some students to present any research projects they made. Yeah, because we know of a few. Thinking
this was also an idea. Yeah, because we got very positive feedback from Munich, from the technical university, where students are using Xeokit in their courses. So yeah.
I wouldn't underestimate the reach that you have. Even now, we are just some people, but we upload it on YouTube, and then people just quickly stream through what they see on YouTube, and it makes it much more accessible. Like, no, really, like now we just like touched some of the interesting topics, but I think as you're so deep into it, I think it's very interesting to learn from you, I guess. Many people don't have the resources and the commitment to be that deeply involved with WebGL and everything around it. So thank you very much also for taking your time and talking us through a little bit through your journey and the great things that happen there. And
cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Super interesting.
Don't worry to share also the link. Probably we can also forward it then with the opensource.construction LinkedIn account. If you have an invitation for next Tuesday.
Oh yes. Sure.
And I'm sure we will see you again probably when Xeokit Vision 3 came out, and we can talk a little bit about what it meant to your community and what it means for you to maintain both frameworks for some time. And
yeah, sure.
Just, we stay in touch anyways, I guess.
Yes, definitely.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Soon. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.